Hey you guys, so a couple videos ago I filmed outside and it's such a beautiful day. It's not raining, finally, every day. Um, so I think today and tomorrow it's not going to be raining. So yeah, it's a beautiful day. Skies are blue, so I was like, why not just come out here and make another outside video? And so, as promised, this one will be about that scary ass story that happened to my uncle 13 years ago, something like that. I think I was like 10. Um, so, we live out in the country, and my grandparents they don't live that far from here. Um, and my uncle is my granddad's brother. So he's my great uncle. And they came up here to spend time with my granddad and my grandmother. And they were going to go home like late at night. And it's probably after midnight or something like that. And they live probably over an hour away. And so they decided to take a back road. Okay, well, they kind of had to, because that back road is kind of the only road that leads to their town. So as they're driving along, it's my uncle, my aunt, and my cousin. Uh, my cousin's in the back. Well, it doesn't matter where they're sitting, but my granddad's driving. I mean, not my granddad. My uncle's driving, and they come across this guy in the street, and he is glowing green, and he's jumping up and down. Is what I don't know why I keep saying my granddad, but my uncle. That's what my uncle has said the last time we talked about this story. But the first time he told me about it, the only thing that's changed in this story over the years is what this man was doing. The first time he told me, not too long after it happened, is the man was dancing in the road. And now the version of the story was he was jumping up and down, very unnatural like, too high for a normal person to be jumping. So I'm gonna go with the guy was dancing, because that story he told me, or that version of the story he told me, didn't happen too long after this event happened. So, that version would be, or that memory would be fresher on his mind. And, so I'm going to go with that one instead of the one 13 years later that he told. So, yeah, they slowed down, and they didn't know what this man was doing. He's out in the middle of nowhere. It's late at night. And so, that story has like fascinated me for years, because that road is not too far from here, actually. And like, it's all right. Like, everybody up here that I live around is a bunch of family. So, and people that aren't family, my family knows, So, if this would have happened to anybody else, I would eventually have heard about it. Somebody would have told somebody. That person would have told, somebody I was kin to. That person would have, I would have heard it through the grapevine if somebody else had come across this guy that same night or something like that. And so there is three possibilities that I've come up with that this could have been. And I don't believe in supernatural, so I don't think it's that, but I'm just throwing it out there for people who are interested in that type of thing. But it could have also been a prank. Somebody that just, wanted to scare a few cars. But there's problems with that, and I'll get to that. I'll get back to that here in a minute. The third possibility is that it could have been somebody with sinister motives. They could have been that person they saw dancing or hopping in the road, whatever version actually happened of the story. They could have been the one trying to distract the drivers, the cars, make them stop. And then somebody in beside the road, that the driver or anybody in the car, you know, they could have been hiding by the road, unseen in the darkness. And while this person in the road dances or hops or whatever and gets the car's attention, somebody beside the road could have ran up to the car, dragged whoever's in the car out, robbed them, killed them, raped them, you know, and, you know, it could have been something like that. Who knows? The theory I'm going to go with is it was probably a prank, but there's flaws in that. And so I'm going to get into that now. Alright, this road is like lonely as hell. It probably, for a late night, it probably only sees like a few cars all night long. So, it sounded like, from what my uncle had told me, it sounded like this person went through a lot of effort, because, and I forgot to mention that this person they seen was very tall. And I don't know if my uncle told me he was wearing a top hat or not, because I don't know if that's just what I'm adding to the story, or if that's what he actually told me. But every time I think about this guy or picture this in my head, I always imagine him with a top hat. So he may or may not have worn a top hat, but he wore this this, you know, outfit. He maybe like a suit or something, and everything down to his shoes glowed green. And so he was dancing, waving his arms, is the first version of the story. And then when I heard it again, like 13 years later, well, maybe 12, because it was probably a year ago since the last time my uncle had talked about this with me. And so this version was, or the second version was, this guy was dancing, just like dancing very, very high, and very unnatural, like supernatural even. And so yeah, it kind of sounds like this person could have been trying to distract cars. You know, going back to that that third theory of mine, that could have been something sinister. But anyway, going back to the prank, you know, they could have had springs under the shoes or whatever, or I don't know, for them to be able to jump that high. So it sounds like this person went through a lot of effort to prank cars, and they chose a bad road to do it on, because like I said, this road barely sees any cars, so they'd be out there waiting a long time for a car to pass. And we're out, or that road is out in the middle of nowhere practically. It's we have a lot of wild animals too, so that's another thing to factor in. You know, they're risking their lives to do this prank, and just on a few cars. So I don't know if this stretch of road has any trees or not, but they would have had to, you know, hide their car somewhere and just stand by the road and wait. You know, there could have been other people hiding by the road and, you know, just watching the prank for themselves. You know, like the guy that's standing in the road, you know, doing the prank, could have had friends watching the prank hidden by the road, you know, laughing their asses off, because I know my dad and his stepbrother and brothers used to do that shit all the time back when they were teenagers. So, but yeah, I know that, you know, people do pranks like that, but sometimes things aren't pranks. Sometimes people have bad intentions and they actually do want to harm you. And from what my uncle said, they did not stop. They slowed down to make sure they wasn't going to hit him or whatever, but they went around him. They did not stop, and they made sure to lock their doors. So that could have saved them, you know, just in case this turned out to be something, you know, bad, like if these are bad people actually, you know, wanting to hurt people. But nothing ever came about it. Like, nothing ever happened. You know, no one ever got hurt as far as I know, or know. So yeah, this story has always fascinated me. And if any of you have stories like this you would like to share, leave it in the comments below. I read all the comments because I barely get any. But yeah, I love talking about this sort of thing. So if you do have some creepy ass stories, just anything, it doesn't have to be about back roads late at night, you know, driving alone or whatever, or driving with other people late at night. It could be just any damn thing. If you have any scary stories, personal stories that has happened to you in your life, leave it in the comments, because I love that shit. I absolutely love that shit when people tell me their own personal horror stories. I love it. I eat it up. I always have since I was a little kid. I always loved horror stories. But yeah, guys, that is it for this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I will see you guys later.